Hi there, and welcome to Coffee with Phil, where our goal is to help you live a life of purpose on purpose. Walking with God sounds easy, but how many of you know it never follows the script you prepared? In this podcast, Phil shares stories from his personal journey in the hopes that his experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, will help you as you walk with God on your own journey. Grab your coffee and enjoy this practical and personal episode with your podcast host, Phil Strong.
Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Coffee with Phil. And today we're celebrating. This afternoon, I'm celebrating 100 episodes of Coffee with Phil. It's been a milestone that I've been talking about for a while. I've kind of set it as a goal, and I want to speak about this today, and I want to celebrate. I want to talk about the last part of the journey and what the future might look like. And I want to add some value while I'm with you today. So I've got some notes here, and we're gonna get through that. And before we do, I'm always wondering what kind of coffee you're drinking. What does it look like in your world today to have coffee with Phil? I'm sitting in my office and it's a scorcher. It's hot outside. It's muggy and stuffy. I don't have AC on in this room, which is my bad. But I've got an iced coffee. Made an espresso, a shot of espresso, poured it over half a dozen ice cubes and topped it up with a little bit of milk. Stirred it with a straw, and I've been enjoying that. You will hear from time to time the straw and the ice cubes tinkle around as I finish my coffee. So make sure you get yourself a decent coffee. Today, Coffee with Phil, episode 100, and the title of this episode are Milestones Are Amazing. And that's just a play on words. A few of you will get that, but I want to talk about milestones. I want to reflect personally on what it's taken to produce over 100 episodes in the podcast. And it's been a challenge, I'm not going to lie. It's been a task, and I want to speak to that in the second half of the conversation that we're having together. And look, the goal is not a goal for the number. The goal is because of the outcomes that it's going to produce in me. And you get to journey along with that if you want to. And I hope that it's really given you some value. I was challenged this week as someone had listened to the podcast episode, recent one around, she said, well, you challenged me not to worship my problems, and that was enough. That's all I needed to hear. I had to go off and sort myself out. I found that encouraging, surprisingly. So 100 episodes, putting out an episode every week this year, and obviously the same last year. It's taken quite a bit of commitment, and I want to talk about commitment in the second half. In the first half, I want to talk about milestones. You got to remember that I'm also not only producing this content, but I'm regularly preaching in churches. I'm writing articles for newspapers and websites. I've got a new book in development that is exciting, and it's consuming my imagination. And yet I made a commitment in the midst of that to do a weekly podcast to encourage people, because I felt the Lord say to me, I want you to bring your life out into the open. I want to be transparent about the faith journey, that faith would be made real for people, that it's not a theory that they hear a preacher talk about. It's a practical choice in how to live that they see someone demonstrating. And the Lord said, live your life wide open. Be transparent about how you seek to live a life of purpose on purpose. And so I've done that in different ways. And I've done it as best I can, and I've tried to be transparent without turning into a soppy ninny, whatever that is. So that's just what this season has been about. But more than that, the fundamental foundation stone, the cornerstone for me in this past season for the podcast has certainly been a commitment to a goal that I felt God give me. It was an invitation to commit myself to something, dedicate myself to the task and the process involved with that, but it was because God asked me to. And I want to refer to this later because I want to talk about commitment. But before I talk about commitment, as I said to you, the title of this podcast is Milestones Are Amazing, and I want to talk about milestones. This is it's a discipline in my life that I have learned to appreciate. And I want to say first and foremost, I want to say to you that milestones are worth celebrating. So, birthdays. Do you really want to be celebrating birthdays when you're my age? Well, they're worth celebrating. It's a remembrance of the way that you were brought into the world, where you were brought into the world, when you were brought into the world, and why you were brought into the world. So if I'm ever with someone on their birthday and I've got permission to help them celebrate, I'm very, very keen to prophesy over that person in their birthday moment, whether it's, birthday month, birthday week, or we're just having a catch-up. Because a prophetic encouragement reminds us why we were born. It helps us to understand who we are and where we're going. And certainly, I view the gift of prophecy as something that God uses to help people on their journey, like signposts along the way. So milestones are worth celebrating. And look, I'd say the same with anniversaries. Wedding anniversaries. I want to pray life. I want to declare heaven into our relationships in order that they would continue to bear fruit in line with what God has prepared for that partnership, that the two would become one and effective with God. So I think that, actually, here's another thing I brought on my list. I don't want to skip this one, and that's achievements or milestones. Like graduations, like completing a course, or in this case, for me, reaching a goal, milestone. It's an achievement. And look, I used to be so driven, so motivated by progress or wanting to maintain progress that I was working my nose to the grindstone, let's just say that. I was working my nose to the grindstone to achieve the next goal, and often I would achieve one goal and I would not even pause to celebrate the goal. I'd carry on. And now what I've realized is that it's really important to stop for a moment, and I want to asterisk this right here. I want to say, what does it mean to celebrate a milestone? It's about stop and pause to remember what you've accomplished. Stop, pause, remember what you accomplished, and remember what it cost you to get here, and remember why it's important to you. Now, obviously, you're celebrating things that are important to you. Is my birthday important to me? Well, of course it is, because I'm the center of the room, and it's all about me, baby. What about a wedding anniversary? Well, yeah, if I don't stay married, then it's not going to go so well for me, is it? So I've got to remember why this is important to me. And, those of you that are family people, the reason this is so important is what you're demonstrating to your children, your grandchildren, those that you do life with. You're demonstrating that there are aspects of life that are very important. So what you choose to celebrate is what people focus on. So if you're going to celebrate achievement, if you're going to celebrate participation in something that cost everyone effort, time, or commitment, that's worth celebrating, but it's also worth reinforcing why it's important. I'm not about giving out awards for participation, but I'm certainly about celebrating the process. So milestones are definitely worth celebrating. Milestones are about acknowledging what it cost. If you're going to climb a mountain, it's not just the effort of getting to the top on the day, it's all the sacrifice you made along the way to get there. It's about the training. It's about the getting up early. It's about the going without the chocolate, if that's something that you did. I remember when Kathy, my wife, set her goal. I think I've told you this story before. I'll just quickly recap it. I was sitting in an airport bar in a transit lounge in the US somewhere, and my son sent me a message. Jackson said, "Watch out, Dad. Mum just set a goal to run a 5K race." And I instantly shook my head, because I knew that what was her goal would quickly become my goal. And so sure enough, I get home and I want to support her in that goal. So I help her with her running. She had friends also. But then she got a bit of the bug, and it became, well, let's do a 10K run. So now the training is longer. uh, and has a different aspect to it. She nails that a couple of times, and then she sets her sight on a half marathon. And this is where I really shook my head, because I knew that getting to that goal was going to cost us a lot of time and a lot of commitment. But I was 100% behind her ambition to achieve this goal. So you know what? When the alarm went off before 6 and we had to roll out of bed, and in those days we lived out on country roads, it wasn't really very safe to run on. And I didn't want her running on the road. So we would get in the car and drive into town, into the suburbs, and we would map out a run for the day. That cost me a lot. The point I'm making is I'm remembering what that cost me, and I'm saying it was very important that I supported Kathy to achieve that goal. So that's what milestones are like. That's what makes milestones amazing, is that we can celebrate them, remembering what we've accomplished, what it cost us to get here, and why it is important to us. The second thing I want to talk about, you know me, I like to bring the Bible into things. My monuments are what we create to recognize milestones. So obviously getting married is an achievement, it's a milestone, and we have a monument that's called our wedding anniversary. Sometimes, Kathy, when she was doing her running races, she would get these medals, achievement or completion medals, and she'd collect them. And they were monuments. And those monuments carry a message. So a monument is what you gather together in order to remember the milestone, and it becomes a monument. Now, in the times of the Bible, they would build monuments out of large rocks. And I want to give you a couple of references here. I'm not going to preach the Bible, but I do want to point you to something. In Joshua chapter 4, we know that the people of God are preparing to cross the river to go into the promised land. You might have heard of Jericho. They're about to go and march around Jericho. But before they do that, God comes to them and says, cross the river. And as you cross the river, this is Joshua chapter 4. As you cross the river, he says, I want you to take one man from each of the tribes. I want each man to gather a large stone from the middle of the river. This is the Jordan River they're crossing from east to west towards the promised land. He says, take those stones and establish yourself a monument, like an altar, like a large pillar. And he says this, he says, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea when he dried up before us until we had crossed over. That all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. What's my point? A monument that you create is for future generations. So you create this memory, you create this monument that recognizes a significant milestone, and it speaks to your children and your children's children of the favor of God and the providence of God and the sovereignty of God and the love of God and the grace of God for your generations to come. I mean, that's a significant thing to do. You know, like I can still remember as a young boy, I'm gathering with family to celebrate my grandparents, my dad's parents' 50th wedding anniversary. I still remember it. Well, I was a young boy. All my cousins were there. We'd run around and have fun together. But I remember the moment we gathered in the garden and we unveiled this centerpiece for their garden. They were really into their garden and having the birds in the garden. And so the family, my parents, my aunties and uncle had all pitched in it, and they'd bought them this beautiful concrete plinth bird bath for the centerpiece of their garden. And I remember the box coming off it and everyone celebrating. That's a monument that celebrates a milestone that communicates to me the value of honoring your marriage and committing to the long term. And I watched my grandparents celebrate that. That's the point. Monuments carry a message for generations. But the second thing that I want to say to you is actually that monuments are really important to remind us to worship God. And I'm thinking of the story of Jacob. Sorry, I'm looking at it right on the screen here, and my mind went blank. I'm remembering the journey of Jacob as he heads north to his family relatives to find himself a wife. And she's probably pretty excited about this trip. But he goes down to this certain place, and it says here he took the stone and put it under his head, and he slept on it. And he had this dream and a revelation of God, and God made a promise over Jacob's life in this dream. And he says, this is Genesis 28. He said, surely the Lord is in this place. How awesome is this place? This is the gate of heaven. And then he rose in the morning and took the stone that he's put his head on and set it up as a pillar. He poured oil on it to consecrate it and anoint it, and he called that place Bethel. And he made a vow before the Lord, if God be with me and keep me this way. He made a commitment to God, right? He was worshiping God. And I remember, all through the Bible, there are stories. Abraham did the same thing. Isaac did the same thing. Jacob did the same thing. Joshua did the same thing. They would put up a monument in order that they would remind themselves to worship God. And so what I'm saying to you is if you put monuments in place to celebrate your milestones, you will remember to turn back your celebration as praise to God. And, this is such a little thing for me to talk about with regards to a podcast. It's not like a massive life achievement. It's not a complicated goal. But the significance of the discipline of pausing to recognize that milestones are amazing. Milestones require monuments, and monuments carry a message. And that really is the key thing that I want to say here. Monuments carry a message that will be for generations to come, that will cause you to turn back your achievement in praise to God. I've quoted my book, Building a Strong Family, many times on this podcast. That's a collection of stories that God asked me to write about as a reflection on our journey as a family and things that God showed us and he taught us through our good times and our bad times. And I wrote quite openly about that. Building a Strong Family. We'll put the link to the book in the show notes. But I wrote that book as a monument. Like that is, I wrote it and I gave it to my kids and I said, this is who we are as a family. And you're my greatest celebration. What's the point? They will carry that into their lives as parents. They will then recognize the hand of God on our family and therefore their family. So monuments carry a message. Now, what I want to do here in this last section of the podcast for the year, episode 100, I'm just reflecting on that going, God is so good. Every single week, what does it take? I've got to sit down. I've got to think about what does the Lord want me to share? What aspect of my life? What's a message? Way back in the early days, I started doing interviews. This is just around lockdown 1 or something. And I had a list of 75 people, and next to their names, I had a reason why I wanted to interview them. And I didn't get very far into it. I just didn't really feel the grace on it. But also, I realized how difficult it was to coordinate and organize to get two people in the same room to share a space and to give them room to share their story. So I shifted to doing these kinds of episodes. And I suppose what makes it easy is that I can record these on the go, I can record these at home, I can record these in the office. I've got the technology to do that, and it made it easier. But it's still a milestone. It still takes every week or every couple of weeks. Sit down and map out my thoughts, record a 30-minute session, and then, you've got to go through production and post-production and then uploads and all that sort of thing. And thankfully, I've got some help with that. So credit to the team. It's not all about me doing the mahi. What I want to finish with is I want to talk about commitment. I want to share like what's it actually taken to produce this, not technically, but what's it cost me, what's it taken, and this is really, as I shared before, it's a commitment to a God-given goal, and it's the God-given goal that drives me to be committed. So let's talk about commitment. I want to say first that commitment brings challenges, and I expected challenges. So challenges are expected and also faced willingly. If you're going to shrink away from challenge, you're not going to grow, because if it doesn't stretch you, you won't be put to the test and you won't grow. You won't find the new level that God's prepared for you. So understand this. Commitment does take the necessity for us to expect challenges and face challenges. Commitment also brings opposition. And on my notes here, I've mainly referred to the opposition that comes from within. I had a wonderful conversation with some younger people this week, and one of them spoke about the battle that goes on inside her head when she doesn't feel like she's good enough to be in the same room as some of the other people we were talking about. And I was helping her to see that that's opposition that comes from within, like it's an internal battle. And it's about her self-perception, but it's also about her openness to choose to listen to the accusations of the enemy of her soul. So what's my point? I'm saying commitment will bring opposition, and a lot of the times that opposition comes from within us. So we've got to learn to be master over that. Remember when the Lord said to Cain, he said, sin is crouching at your door, but you must master it. So opposition that comes from within can be mastered. Commitment also brings a requirement that we would manage our priorities to make room. Managing our priorities. It means shifting balances. It means putting things in order in your life and understanding what's important. See, when I talk about priorities, it's about what am I going to prioritize? What's important to me? What's important to me and why? And for years and years and years, I've been teaching people that managing their priorities is how they will be fulfilled and successful, because they'll be achieving things that are important to them, not someone else. So by managing your priorities to make room, what you're doing is you're identifying and escalating what's important to you, and you're focusing on that. And that's how you will find fulfillment, to work on what's important to you with commitment. Commitment also means that you have to choose to miss out. And what I mean by that is when you say yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else. Missing out is not a bad thing. We've all got limits. We've all got restrictions. We've all got limitations. So commitment actually is about acknowledging that I'm going to miss out. Saying yes to one thing means saying no to something else. Commitment also requires intentionality. My friend Wendy wrote a book called Intentionality, and it was about the deliberate discipline of being focused every day and setting yourself in the right direction. You could use the analogy of setting the sail or setting the compass, to be intentional about the direction that you're focusing, and that's part of your commitment, to be intentional. Don't let life happen to you, but trust the wind of God and set your sail accordingly. Commitment also requires tenacity. And tenacity towards tasks. In the early days, what we did is we being those of us that are putting this together, put aside a planning spreadsheet, like a task list. We're using an app for that. But it was about getting the tenacity towards tasks built in. And so we would do step 1, and we'd do step 2, and then we'd do step 3, and then we'd do step 4, and we'd make sure we checked off step 1 so that we knew it was done, and then we move on to step 2. You've got to have tenacity towards that, because there are other parts of my life where I'm not so tenacious, and things slip and things drift, and then I miss the mark. So tenacity is something that's essential as part of our commitment. I also think that it's really important to have milestones midway, and that's you acknowledging that there's more to come, but you're setting a milestone in the middle. And this was really, really important to us when we were running, and Kathy and I were running as preparation and training for her half marathon. If you're setting out to run 18 Ks on a Saturday morning, Well, for me at least, I'm like, I'm going to break this down. Like, let's get the first 5Ks, let's get into rhythm, and then say, okay, let's set our target on getting to 10Ks. There was milestones in the middle. That's why you have markers to keep you on track, moving towards your destination, milestones midway. So I was really excited when I got to 50 episodes earlier this year, right at the beginning of the year, and then I got to 80, and I was like, man, this is tracking well. So milestones midway means there's more to come. One of the things that I've recognized in my commitment to several goals this year has been an evolution of self. Evolution of self, and what I mean by that is self-improvement, because regular, repeated action means that I'm building disciplines that make me stronger. And that's an evolution of self. That's what I mean by that. So doing the same thing over and over and over has allowed me to build new habits and new patterns. It's meant I've evolved as a person to become better. So evolution of self is definitely a fruit of our commitment. I had to set this one for myself. I've written down no room for wavering. And I really had to put a zero tolerance in there. Am I going to skip a week? Am I going to take a break? Am I going to change my audience and not give them the depth of content that I really felt the Lord had asked me to? So often in my notes, I would scratch out my notes and then I'd go through them in my prep, and then I'd think, actually, where am I in the story? What does this mean for me? And I would write PS next to it, and I'd draw a big circle around it, and I would be my discipline not to waver from sharing my faith and my journey and my challenges, my application as part of this podcast. Because I just want to sit here and tell you what to do. I want to share what I'm walking and how I'm struggling and how I'm succeeding in order that it might help you to live a life of purpose on purpose. So no room for wavering, zero tolerance. And finally, commitment really leads us to a place of testament to God's goodness. The New Testament, the Old Testament, those are the testimony of God. And so what I want my milestones to be, and in fact the commitment that I live my life with, I want it to be a testament to God's goodness. So as I said earlier, I want to turn back any success that I have and praise to God. God, I'm grateful that you sustained me to do this. I'm grateful that you gave me inspiration. I'm grateful that you gathered people around me who would share the journey with me. It's a testament to your goodness, God, and I give you thanks for that. So commitment leads us to a place of having a testament to God's goodness in our life, his faithfulness, his grace, and his hand upon our lives. So what I've just shared with you is all these things that bring us fruit in our life as part of commitment. Now, what you might not realize, because I was speaking these to you, is that each one of those starts with a letter that spells out commitment. Isn't that cute? Look at me go. I don't even know what you call that. Maybe an acronym, I'm not sure. But it's a little word game I played with the word commitment to say what are things that come. Challenges, opposition, managing priorities, missing out, intentionality, tenacity towards tasks, milestones midway, evolution of self, no room for wavering, and T for testament. That spells commitment. You're welcome. As I close the podcast in this season, episode 100 coming to an end, I'm wondering where to from here. Where should I go next? Do I want to make this more personal? Do I want to make this more prophetic? Do I want to make this more practical? How am I going to keep this faith-based? What can I do to bring testimony into it, to point to God's goodness, but bring you into a place of confidence and faith in God himself? I definitely want to make the podcast applicable and relatable. I ask you to share with your friends and with followers, your audience. Ask you to help me to promote this. I would encourage you over the summer or over the break that I'm taking. I've got to head to Indonesia on a missions trip, so I won't be recording much, but listen to episodes during the break. Go and find something, search keywords, find your favorites, share it with friends, review the list, and find something that will help you. Now, of course, even though it's New Zealand summer, it's going to be hot. It's going to be stinking hot in Indonesia, but I'm still saying drink great coffee. I have really enjoyed journeying with you, sharing my coffee with you, my passion for coffee, my addiction to coffee, my preference for good coffee, but also my faith. I want to share my faith with you, that you would know God is truly good, that he loves you for who you are, because he made you who you are, and he wants you to shine with all of his glory. So I pray that you find him in a fresh way in this break, and that you would walk even closer with him. God bless you, friends. I look forward to seeing you in the next season. Take care.